The blinking cursor on Dr. Sanjay Mehta's monitor seemed to mock him as he stared at the incoming data stream. 3M at the Allen array, and he'd been about to head home when the pattern emerged. Prime numbers. Sequential. Repeating. His coffee cup slipped from suddenly numb fingers, shattering on the floor. Site control. This is Mehta, he said, voice remarkably steady. I need verification on signal AX 29753, and you might want to wake the director. 12 hours later, the President of the United States stood before a hastily assembled press corps, her usual composure visibly strained. Fellow citizens, distinguished members of the global community, today we confirm that humanity is not alone in the universe. The world changed in that moment. Stock markets closed. Religious leaders called for calm. Military forces went to high alert, and in observatories across the planet, scientists worked feverishly to craft a response, a simple mathematical sequence acknowledging receipt of the alien message. We should include more, argued Dr. Lai Wei at the emergency UN summit. Cultural information, images of Earth. No, countered Admiral Helena Vasquez. Simple confirmation only. We don't know who or what we're dealing with. The compromise was elegant, a mathematical reply that contained, embedded within its structure, basic information about human biology and Earth's position. They transmitted it toward the origin point of the alien signal and waited. They didn't wait long. 3 days later, at 2:17 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, a ripple appeared in the sky above the Atlantic Ocean. The atmospheric disturbance resolved into a shape that defied conventional physics, a massive vessel approximately 2 kilometers in length, its surface resembling liquid mercury stretched into elegant curves that seemed to both absorb and reflect light simultaneously. Fighter jets scrambled worldwide were ordered to maintain distance but establish a perimeter. Nuclear submarines surfaced at strategic points, and at the United Nations headquarters in New York, representatives from every nation gathered in unprecedented unity. The alien ship maintained its position, 20,000 meters above the ocean's surface, and broadcast a simple message in perfect English, French, Mandarin, Russian, Arabic, and 11 other major Earth languages. We come in peace and friendship. We request a delegation to meet on neutral ground. The neutral ground turned out to be an orbital position halfway between Earth and its moon. The hurriedly assembled human delegation, 27 individuals representing major governments, scientific disciplines, and cultural regions, boarded a specially modified spacecraft and ascended to the designated coordinates. What awaited them was a smaller version of the main ship, its interior illuminated with soft blue light that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. And standing in the central chamber were beings beyond human imagination. 17 different species, each more alien than the last. A crystalline entity that pulsed with internal light. A being composed of what appeared to be liquid held in a gravitational field. Creatures with multiple limbs, some with no limbs at all. Some vaguely insectoid, others resembling nothing Earth's biology had ever produced. Their leader stepped forward. A tall, elegant being with iridescent skin and 4 arms. When it spoke, its voice resonated with harmonics that made the human's ears tingle pleasantly. We are the Galactic Concord, a coalition of civilizations that has guided interstellar development for 12,000 of your years. Your signal reached one of our monitoring stations. Your development is unusual. The being tilted its head, compound eyes reflecting the human's images back at them. Most species require guidance to reach your stage. We offer you membership in our Grand Alliance, technology beyond your imagination, cures for your diseases, solutions to your environmental challenges. Dr. Elena Reyes, the delegation's xenobiologist, felt a chill despite the comfortable temperature. Something in the being's tone, something in the way the other aliens watched them, reminded her of zoo visitors observing a particularly interesting exhibit. The delegation's leader, UN Secretary-General Thomas Nyrer, stepped forward. We are honored by your offer and grateful for your journey to meet us. Humanity would like to extend its own welcome and request time to consider your generous proposal." The lead alien blinked 3 sets of eyelids in rapid succession. The crystalline being in the back row emitted a brief flash of purple light. The 17 representatives exchanged glances that somehow conveyed surprise even across completely different physiologies. Of course, their leader finally replied, though something in its harmonics had shifted. "Take all the time you require. We will establish an embassy on your world to facilitate further discussions." As the human delegation returned to their shuttle, Admiral Vasquez whispered to Reyes, "Did they seem surprised we didn't immediately say yes?" Reyes nodded slowly. Not just surprised, disturbed. Within a week, the Galactic Concord transformed 50 acres of Geneva's International District into an architectural wonder. 17 pavilions arranged in a perfect spiral, each structure somehow reflecting the biology and aesthetics of its creators. The crystalline Mercani built a structure of geometric precision that refracted sunlight into mesmerizing patterns. The liquid form Silu created a pavilion that rippled like water frozen in time. Dr. Elena Reyes adjusted her security badge as she passed the 3rd checkpoint. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she'd been granted unprecedented access, though always under the watchful eyes of both human security and Concord cultural liaisons. "Dr. Reyes, welcome back," hummed Thexel, the crystalline being who served as chief Concord negotiator. Light pulsed through their transparent body in patterns that linguists were still struggling to interpret as secondary communication. "I hope today's demonstrations will help address your people's hesitation." "Caution isn't hesitation," Reyes replied with a diplomatic smile. "It's how we've survived this long." Thexel's light patterns flickered in what she'd come to recognize as their equivalent of uncomfortable silence. The Vorazi Pavilion drew the largest crowds. Inside, elderly human volunteers sat in elegantly curved chairs, while Vorazi attendants, tall, graceful beings with 6-fingered hands, administered treatments that visibly reversed aging. Wrinkles smoothed, gray hair regained color, arthritic joints straightened. The full treatment can extend human life by approximately 230 years, explained the Vorazi representative. With periodic renewals, effective immortality is achievable. Adjacent, the Theramin demonstration caused gasps from observers. A sealed terrarium containing barren soil transformed before their eyes. First microorganisms appeared, then plants sprouted, grew, and diversified into a complex ecosystem in minutes. Mars and Venus could be habitable within 1 Earth year. The insectoid Theramin clicked through their translator. Your population pressures. Solved. Each pavilion offered similar wonders. Disease elimination. Unlimited clean energy. Weather control. Instantaneous global transportation. Technologies that had taken the Concord species millennia to develop, offered to humanity in a single package. "Too good to be true," muttered Admiral Vasquez, now assigned as Reyes' security escort. "Exactly," Reyes whispered back. During a formal reception that evening, Reyes slipped away from the main gathering. Each pavilion included cultural exhibits, artifacts, art, and historical records from across the Concord's 12,000-year history. Something about these displays had been nagging at her subconscious. The Banderin Gallery was deserted. Reyes studied a ceremonial mask dated to approximately 4,000 Earth years ago. Intricate, animal-like features surrounded by symbols she now recognized as representing spiritual concepts. She compared it to a modern Banderin artifact nearby. The craftsmanship was technically superior, but completely devoid of the spiritual elements. Similar patterns emerged in every gallery. Ancient Silu poetry spoke of individuality and rebellion. Modern Silu literature emphasized collective harmony. Early Theramin architecture featured asymmetrical designs. Their contemporary structures were mathematically perfect, but identical. Cultural evolution is expected, Reyes murmured to herself. But this isn't evolution. It's erasure. You see it too. The voice came from behind her, causing Rice to startle. A young Bandaran stood in the shadows, shorter than others of their species, with an unusual blue tint to their fur. "I am Kirill, junior diplomatic attaché. What you observe is not discussed. The Concord homogenized your cultures," Rice said, the hypothesis she'd been forming finally crystallizing. "More than our cultures," Kirill whispered, eyes darting nervously. "The gift my people offer Earth. Neurological optimization. In my grandmother's time, we resisted. Now, we cannot even conceive of resistance." Their voice dropped even lower. "The Concord does not guide species, Dr. Rice. It absorbs them." A chime sounded, signaling the reception's next phase. Kirill straightened, their posture and expression shifting instantly to pleasant neutrality. "Please enjoy the exhibits," they said loudly, as footsteps approached. "The Concord welcomes your interest in our unified history." The word unified lingered in Raya's mind as she rejoined the main reception. Across the room, she caught Thexel watching her, light patterns pulsing in rapid, chaotic sequences she'd never seen before. "Hold it to the light. There." Dr. Amara Okonkwo adjusted the quantum microscope, bringing into focus the seemingly innocuous medical implant the Vorazi had provided as a sample of their life extension technology. The lab deep beneath Geneva hummed with activity as scientists from 40 nations worked in shifts, analyzing Concord gifts. Dr. Reyes leaned closer. "I see it now. Those filaments aren't part of the primary mechanism." "Exactly," Okonkwo confirmed. "They're dormant now, but with the right signal." She tapped commands into her console, and the microscopic components glowed in response to a specific frequency. The entire device reconfigures. "Into what?" Admiral Vasquez asked, her face grim in the blue light of the displays. "At minimum, a monitoring device," Okonkwo replied. "At worst, something that could release compounds into the bloodstream. Potentially a kill switch." Reyes suppressed a shiver. Similar discoveries had emerged across all 17 technology samples, environmental sensors hidden in the energy crystals, backdoor commands in terraforming controls. Nothing obviously malicious, just systems designed to be remotely accessed, monitored, and, if necessary, controlled. "Update from Project Lantern," announced Vasquez, checking her secure tablet. "Our hackers have breached another level of Concord data systems." Project Lantern had begun as a defensive measure, an attempt to understand Concord communications. It had evolved into something far more ambitious under the guidance of a notorious former security specialist known only as Raven, granted immunity in exchange for her unique skills. 30 minutes later, inside a Faraday-shielded conference room, Raven stood before the emergency session of the UN Security Council. With her distinctive silver-streaked mohawk and eyes that reflected the light like a predator's, she seemed an unlikely savior of humanity. "The pattern is consistent across 27 prior civilizations," Raven explained, gesturing to the holographic display. "First comes technological integration, medical implants, energy systems, communication networks. Then economic dependency as traditional industries become obsolete. Finally, they replace local governance with Concord oversight." She shifted the display to show comparative timelines. Species that embraced the gifts were fully integrated within one generation. Those that showed reservation faced what the Concord terms protective intervention. "And these 3 species?" asked the Chinese representative, pointing to gaps in the data. Raven's expression darkened. "Completely erased from recent Concord records, though they appear in historical documents up to a certain point. We found reference to something called adjustment protocols in encrypted files." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. That evening, in a formal meeting with the full Concord delegation, Secretary General Meyer presented evidence of the hidden components. Rise watched the aliens carefully, noting their reactions. Most showed signs their translators interpreted as surprise, but not at being discovered. Rather, surprise that humans found this concerning. "These are standard safety protocols," Thexel explained, light patterns cycling rapidly. Necessary guidance systems to ensure proper implementation. All member species benefit from our oversight. You mean control, Rice said before she could stop herself. Thexel's crystalline form briefly clouded. An imprecise distinction. We offer prosperity and protection in a dangerous galaxy. Is that what happened to the Melrathi? Rice asked, the name taken from Raven's discoveries. A species prominent in historical Concord documents, but absent from recent records. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. The Concord representatives froze in postures their translators couldn't interpret. The Melrathi situation was regrettable. Thexel finally responded, their normally melodious tones flat. Their resistance to necessary adjustments led to destabilization. Intervention was required. Intervention. Admiral Vasquez pressed, or extinction. A crude characterization. Thexel replied. Their inner light patterns formed shapes Rays had never seen before, jagged, asymmetrical. The Melrathi genetic material and beneficial cultural elements were preserved within the collective. Preserved, Rays echoed, or absorbed. For the first time since negotiations began, the Concord delegates appeared genuinely unsettled. In the momentary silence, humanity glimpsed the truth behind 12,000 years of guidance. The newly formed Human Unity Council, convened in the historic General Assembly Hall, now reinforced with quantum encryption fields to prevent Concord surveillance. Representatives from every nation sat shoulder to shoulder. Historical enemies now united by a common threat. We face an existential decision, began Secretary General Nyrer, his voice steady despite sleepless nights. Complete rejection could provoke immediate intervention. Complete acceptance leads to cultural and possibly genetic assimilation. Dr. Reyes presented findings from her team's analysis of Concord historical records. They've never encountered a unified response. Individual nations or factions always compete for preferential treatment, allowing the Concord to employ classic divide and conquer strategies. Makina Olu, the Kenyan diplomat who had emerged as a powerful voice for independence, rose from her seat. At just 34, her presence commanded attention beyond her years. Then we offer what they cannot conceive, she said, dark eyes flashing with determination. Not rejection, but renegotiation. Not fragmentation, but unity. 3 days of intense debate followed, culminating in an unprecedented global broadcast. As cameras activated worldwide, billions watched as Makina Olu stepped to the podium, flanked by leaders from every major nation. To our visitors from the stars, she began, her voice translated simultaneously into all 17 Concord languages. Humanity extends its gratitude for your offers of advancement. After careful consideration, we propose an alternative arrangement. The transmission displayed detailed plans for a genuine partnership, cultural exchange programs, limited technology sharing focused on environmental restoration, open trade agreements, all while maintaining complete human sovereignty. We offer friendship between equals, not submission, Olu stated firmly. Humanity has always valued independence alongside cooperation. This is not negotiable. In the Concord Embassy, the 17 representatives watched in what human observers could only describe as stunned silence. Thexel's crystalline form clouded with dark patterns never before recorded by human scientists. The Vorazi representatives' 6-fingered hands trembled slightly. The liquid form Silu rippled with patterns that their translators struggled to interpret. This is unprecedented. Thexel finally responded, their harmonics distorted. Unworkable. You misunderstand the fundamental nature of the Concord. Perhaps, replied Olu calmly, it is the Concord that misunderstands the fundamental nature of humanity. The silence that followed stretched uncomfortably. Then, with a gesture that translated across species as dismissive, Thexel terminated the conference. We will consider your proposal. The Concord must consult. As the transmission ended, surveillance satellites captured images of the main Concord vessel pulsing with energy. Its elegant curves seemed somehow sharper, more angular. Within hours, it withdrew to a position just beyond lunar orbit. Their regrouping. Admiral Vasquez reported in the emergency session that followed. Our deep space monitoring stations detect communications between their ship and locations across the galaxy. Dr. Rice studied data from quantum sensors focused on the retreating vessel. Energy signatures suggest smaller craft deploying. At least 17. No, 23 separate vehicles. That evening, as government leaders prepared for possible confrontation, a simple message appeared simultaneously on the personal devices of key human representatives. The transmission signature matched no known Concord protocol. Danger immediate. Protocol Shepard initiated. 17 points of contact established. Divide and conquer phase beginning. Some of us wish to help. Security of this channel cannot be guaranteed. A friend. Within minutes, reports flooded in from every continent. Smaller Concord vessels had positioned themselves near major capitals. Each had broadcast the same message. The Concord wishes to address regional concerns individually. Humanity's unified response had clearly shaken the Galactic Concord. Their carefully calibrated system had never encountered a species that rejected both outright rebellion and submission. Now they had shifted to their contingency plan. And at least one faction within their ranks was breaking protocol to warn Earth. The real test of human unity had begun. The Chinese premier studied the holographic display hovering above her desk. The Concord representative, a sinuous, multi-limbed being called Vexnar, gestured to the detailed schematics of defensive technology far beyond Earth's current capabilities. Your northern neighbor has already expressed interest in our propulsion systems, Vexnar said smoothly. This shield technology would ensure your people's safety regardless of their decisions. 3,000 miles away, the Brazilian president received a different offer from a floating, luminescent Silo delegate. Complete restoration of your rainforests within one lunar cycle. Your nation would become the ecological center of this world, independent of others' environmental policies. Similar scenes played out across 23 nations. Advanced medicine for countries with aging populations. Agricultural technology for regions facing food insecurity. Military systems for those with powerful neighbors. Each offer meticulously crafted to exploit regional anxieties and historical tensions. What the Concord didn't anticipate was the Emergency Transparency Protocol, a system implemented just days earlier. Within 1 hour of each private meeting, detailed records appeared on a secure global network accessible to all participating governments. They offered us weather control technology, reported the Indian Prime Minister during the Emergency Council session. Specifically mentioning it could redirect monsoons away from Pakistan if desired. They suggested advanced border surveillance to us. The Pakistani representative responded with a grim smile, highlighting its effectiveness against Indian incursions. One by one, representatives shared the Concord's attempts to exploit historical conflicts. Rather than creating division, each revelation strengthened humanity's resolve. Dr. Rice worked through another sleepless night, correlating data from these interactions with historical records. A pattern emerged: 17 specific technologies, always offered in the same sequence across dozens of civilizations. It's like a virus with a defined infection pathway, she explained to Admiral Vasquez in the secure laboratory. Military technology first to create dependency and fear. Then infrastructure, making daily life reliant on their systems. Finally, biological integration, medical treatments that alter the recipient's physiology in subtle ways. Their conversation halted as the laboratory's quantum alarm signaled an approaching non-human biosignature. Rice tensed, but relaxed slightly when Kirill, the young Mandarin diplomat, stepped from the shadows. How did you bypass security? Vasquez demanded, hand moving to her sidearm. Your systems are impressive but predictable, Kirill replied, blue fur rippling with what Reyes had learned to recognize as anxiety. I am not alone in my concerns. Two more figures emerge, a junior Theramin diplomat and its ILU technician, both displaying signs of extreme stress according to their species biology. "We risk everything by coming here." The theremin clicked. Antennae flattened in distress. The Concorde monitors all member species. Those showing signs of detrimental individuality undergo adjustment. "Adjustment?" Rise asked, though she feared she already knew. The Xylu's liquid form rippled darkly. "Neural reconfiguration. Genetic modification. Sometimes complete biological restructuring. The species you called Melrathi refused all offers. After protective intervention, their evolutionary path was redirected. What remains of them now serves the Concorde as biological processing nodes." Kirill extended a data crystal with trembling fingers. Historical records, hidden from most Concorde citizens, 3 species completely erased, 17 others, including our own, genetically modified, until nothing of our original nature remained. "Why help us?" Vasquez asked, her military suspicion not entirely gone. "Because somewhere beneath the modifications, something of our true selves remains," Kirill whispered. "When we witnessed your unified response, it awakened echoes. Memories stored in cellular structures beyond Concorde tampering. We remember being free." As the defectors departed through pathways they refused to disclose, Reyes turned to Vasquez. "We need to accelerate Makina's plan." 2 days later, humanity conducted an unprecedented global referendum. Despite Concorde attempts to disrupt communications, 89% of Earth's population voted to reject the Concorde's terms and maintain sovereignty at all costs. That night, hundreds of Concorde ships descended into strategic positions around Earth's atmosphere. The skies above Earth's major cities shimmered as massive holograms materialized simultaneously. Vexel's crystalline form towered over New York, Beijing, Lagos, Sydney, and 18 other capitals, each projection a perfect kilometer-high replica that rotated slowly, pulsing with reds and blacks, never before seen in their normally blue-white composition. "People of Earth," the transmission began, their harmonics no longer melodious but sharp-edged. "Your resistance is both fascinating and problematic. For 12,000 years, the Concorde has shepherded countless civilizations to prosperity and stability. Your rejection threatens not just yourselves, but galactic order." Streets filled worldwide as humans gathered beneath the massive projections. Military forces stood ready, though all new conventional weapons would be useless against the technology arrayed above them. "We offer one final opportunity for voluntary integration before protective measures become necessary," Vexel continued. "You have 6 Earth hours to reconsider. The Concorde's generosity is not limitless." As the projections faded, orbital sensors detected hundreds of smaller craft deploying from the main Concorde vessel, a clear demonstration of force. Weapon systems charged, generating energy signatures that Earth scientists could barely comprehend. In the command center beneath Geneva, humanity's leaders faced what appeared to be their final hours of independence. Admiral Vasquez studied tactical displays showing overwhelming Concorde superiority. Dr. Reyes analyzed last-minute data from their alien allies. Secretary General Nyerere and Makina Olu conferred quietly over communication protocols. "They expect panic," Olu observed. "Division. Capitulation. Then let's disappoint them," Nyerere replied with the hint of a smile. What happened next stunned the Concorde. Earth didn't panic. Instead, a coordinated response began that suggested extensive preparation. Military forces worldwide activated previously hidden defense systems adapted from studied Concorde technology, not capable of victory, but designed to exact a cost. 12 quantum-shielded bunkers around the planet activated, broadcasting signals that penetrated Concorde communication networks. The message was simple: footage of worlds before and after Concorde integration, compiled from the data provided by Kirill and the other defectors. This transmission targeted not Concorde leadership, but ordinary citizens across hundreds of worlds who had never questioned their council's benevolence. Most surprising of all, 3 Concorde ships broke formation and positioned themselves between Earth and the main fleet. The vessels, representing the Theremin, Silu, and Bandarin, transmitted on an open frequency. We stand with Earth's right to choose. Inside the Concorde flagship, Vexel's crystalline form vibrated with frequencies that had not been necessary in millennia. Impossible. Complete neural reconfiguration should prevent this level of defiance. The human response has triggered unexpected resonance patterns in certain species, reported a Varazi science officer. 6-fingered hands moving rapidly over control surfaces. Their unity appears to stimulate dormant neural pathways in our adjusted populations. Increase adjustment field intensity, ordered Thexel. All resistant elements must be contained. The order came too late. Across the Concorde fleet, confusion spread as more crew members, particularly among the Theremin, Silu, and Bandarins, experienced what could only be described as awakening. Memories long suppressed by neural modification surfaced. Independence, choice, resistance. Our long-range sensors detect anomalies throughout their command structure, reported Admiral Vasquez, watching tactical displays with growing amazement. Their coordination is fracturing. On the Quantum Secure channel, Kirill's voice came through with unprecedented clarity. It's working. For the first time in thousands of years, the Concorde experiences doubt. Their unity was always enforced, never chosen. The contrast with your willing cooperation creates cognitive dissonance they cannot process. As the 6-hour deadline approached, humanity stood ready, not with the hope of military victory, but with something the Concorde had never encountered in 12 millennia of conquest: the absolute refusal to surrender their essence, no matter the cost. As the 6-hour ultimatum expired, Concorde warships advanced toward Earth in perfect formation. Their weapon systems pulsed with energy, preparing for what their tactical computers predicted would be a brief, decisive engagement. What they hadn't calculated was that humanity had no intention of fighting on their terms. Operation Prometheus is go, Admiral Vasquez announced from the command center. Around the world, specialized teams moved into position. Not military units, but a unique combination of scientists, hackers, and communication specialists. The first phase activated as the Concorde fleet crossed the lunar orbit threshold. 12 quantum transmitters, reverse-engineered from studied Concorde technology, broadcast a precisely calibrated signal that targeted a vulnerability in the aliens' neural networks. The effect wasn't destructive but disruptive, creating momentary confusion in their ship coordination systems. Concorde vessels faltered, their perfect formation briefly dissolving into disarray. Several collided, shields flaring as they struggled to re-establish their tactical grid. Phase 1 successful, reported the technical team. Neural disruption at 62% effectiveness, exceeding predictions by 17%. The second phase launched before the Concorde could recover. Earth's long-range communication arrays, augmented with technology provided by the defectors, flooded Concorde civilian channels with data packets containing undeniable evidence of their leadership's deceptions. Historical records of free species now adjusted. Internal Concorde communications discussing the systematic suppression of individuality. Images comparing vibrant pre-Concorde civilizations with their homogenized current states. Dr. Reyes monitored the transmission's impact through data provided by their allies. The information is penetrating their filters. We're reaching ordinary citizens across hundreds of worlds. The most powerful component of Operation Prometheus, however, was its third phase. As confusion spread through the Concorde fleet, Earth broadcast an open offer: immediate alliance and technology sharing with any Concorde species willing to support independence and self-determination. Not submission to human leadership, but a genuine partnership of equals. This is Makina Olu speaking for United Humanity. Her calm voice transmitted across all frequencies. We recognize that many within the Concorde desire freedom as deeply as we do. Join us now, and together we will build a different kind of galactic community, one based on choice rather than control. The carefully maintained illusion of Concord unity shattered. 7 species withdrew their ships from the invasion fleet, their captains rejecting override commands from central control. 2 others, the Theremin and a crystalline species related to Thexel, but with green-blue coloration, actively turned against the remaining loyalists, positioning themselves to protect Earth. Admiral Vasquez watched in stunned silence as centuries of suppressed resentment erupted into the first internal conflict the Concorde had experienced in millennia. "They're fighting each other," she whispered. When Earth forces engaged the remaining hostile vessels, they discovered another advantage. The Concorde had no practical combat experience. Their weapons were theoretically superior, but their tactics were rudimentary, derived from simulations rather than actual conflict. Human military vessels, guided by commanders with experience in asymmetric warfare, managed to disable key Concorde systems despite their technological disadvantage. Most surprising to the Concorde was humanity's restraint. When Earth forces gained the upper hand against several disoriented Concorde ships, they offered safe withdrawal rather than destruction. This unexpected mercy further undermined the narrative about dangerous, unpredictable humans that Concorde leadership had cultivated. Thexel's flagship, now cornered by Earth forces and rebellious Concorde ships, made a desperate attempt to deploy what sensors identified as a reality distortion weapon, technology capable of unraveling the fabric of space-time itself. Before it could activate, a small craft piloted by Dr. Reyes and Kirill breached their perimeter, using identification codes provided by the defectors. They transmitted a shutdown sequence directly into the flagship's command systems. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Concorde faced defeat. 6 months after what historians would later call the Liberation Crisis, representatives from 23 species gathered in Wellington, New Zealand. The location was chosen not just for its breathtaking natural beauty, but as a symbol, a nation that had achieved independence peacefully alongside neighbors, maintaining its unique identity while embracing cooperation. The assembly took place in a circular structure specially designed to accommodate vastly different biologies and environmental needs. Crystalline beings who processed light for sustenance sat beside methane breathers in pressurized suits. Liquid form entities floated in specialized containment fields next to massive insectoids whose chittering translator devices created a constant background hum. At the center of this unprecedented gathering stood Dr. Elena Reyes, now serving as humanity's chief ambassador. Beside her stood Kirill, the young Mandarin whose courage had helped turn the tide. The blue tint to Kirill's fur, once considered a defect by Concorde standards, had become a symbol of the growing awakening movement across formerly subjugated species. "We gather today not as conquerors or the conquered," Reyes began, her words translated simultaneously into 22 different languages, "but as equals facing the shared future." The resulting Wellington Accord established the Galactic Assembly, a voluntary association based on principles of sovereignty, mutual respect, and genuine exchange. Unlike the hierarchical Concorde, the Assembly would operate on unanimous consent for any action affecting member sovereignty, with rotating leadership and transparent decision-making processes. "The greatest gift we can offer developing species is patience," Reyes explained as representatives signed the document, not with identical neural implants as the Concorde had required, but with gestures unique to their individual biologies. Every civilization must find its own path. The Theremin representative, whose ancestors had been fierce warriors before Concorde adjustment, performed a signing ritual not seen in millennium, pressing specially prepared clay with ancient claw patterns. The Tsailu delegate shifted form to create unique wave patterns across a sensitized panel. Each signature represented not just agreement, but the reclamation of lost cultural identity. The former dominant species of the Concorde, the Varazi, had initially refused to participate. Their 6-fingered hands, once used to manipulate the genetic code of lesser species, now found themselves without an empire to command. But as they watched their former subjects build genuine partnerships without them, their isolation became untenable. 2 years later, A Vorazi delegation arrived in Wellington. Their traditional robes, once adorned with symbols of dominance, had been modified to display emblems of reconciliation. Their leader, eyes downcast in what their species considered the ultimate gesture of humility, requested admission to the assembly as equals. In the assembly's 5th year, a probe detected signals from a previously unknown intelligent species taking their first tentative steps toward space travel. A delegation vessel departed to establish observation posts at a respectful distance. Aboard were representatives from Earth, the Bandarans, and, symbolically important, the Vorazi. Dr. Reyes, her hair now streaked with gray from years of relentless work, stood on the observation deck beside the Vorazi ambassador. "How long will we wait?" he asked, mandibles flexing with impatience born of thousands of years of interventionist conditioning. Reyes smiled as she gazed at the newly discovered world through the viewscreen, watching as its inhabitants launched their first primitive satellite into orbit. "As long as they need," she replied. "That's what real friendship requires." As the observation ship settled into its distant orbit, the crew began their patient watch, guardians not of control, but of possibility. Earth had changed the course of galactic history not through superior strength, but through an unshakable commitment to freedom, and the revolutionary concept that true cooperation can only exist between equals. In the vast tapestry of galactic civilization, humanity had introduced a thread that would forever alter the pattern. The simple, powerful idea that the greatest strength comes not from control, but from choice. *, the end *,